Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Maya, certified functional medicine practitioner and certified health coach, here to bring you natural solutions for optimal health. So we're into the new year, and one of the biggest things that I've been noticing where people are making mistakes is with their protein intake. So that's what we're going to cover today in this video. Now, who I'm going to be speaking to in particular today is women, and women especially like me who are in their 40s, but men, this will apply to you if you happen to be watching this video. So most of you have heard the advice you need to eat more protein, especially if you're growing older or maybe if you're going on a diet. But right away, when we think about what are we going to eat for more protein, we probably think, well, I need to eat more meat or I need to eat more fish. And this is not necessarily the truth. As veganism and being vegetarian has taken a huge part of our food industry nowadays, there are many plant-based sources that you can also eat that might not have a complete protein content, but when we match them together, they do. So there's lots of sources out there, but what we're trying to do is make sure that we're getting at least 25 to 35% of our total calories that's focused on protein. So what are these foods? Well, basically, you can think of them in two different categories. We have your foods that are full of protein and foods that have some protein. So what do I mean by that? Animal proteins contain complete proteins, as where plant proteins don't. So that's where we have to combine them. And not only that, but plant proteins, a lot of them also have carbohydrate connected to them. So there's a mix of protein content and carbohydrate content in things like legumes. So we're talking more about beans and lentils. Not only that, there are some grains like oats and like quinoa that are high in protein, but they also have carbohydrate. Now we need to address why protein is important, especially as you're aging, and not just that, but in day-to-day body function. So proteins in the body are called amino acids, and basically they show up in things like your muscle tissue and in your enzymes. And we need enzymes for things to be broken down, and we also need proteins for things that need to be repaired in our bodies. As I mentioned earlier, there are some proteins that have a combination of protein and carbohydrates, but also in some meats, we have protein and fat. So it depends on the cut of meat and the type of fat where it's coming from in the animal. But yes, we do have fat in some of our proteins also. And in things like eggs and in beef, we actually have a healthy amount of omega-3 fats. So in the human body, there's two types of amino acids. There's the essential ones and the non-essential ones. And the essential ones are the ones that we need to consume from food in order for those bodily functions to happen. The other list of amino acids that we have are created inside of our bodies, but the ones that we really need are the ones from the food sources that I had previously mentioned. So essentially, if you are eating animal-based proteins, you are actually probably getting more of a complete protein. But if you are vegetarian or vegan, keep listening because you can still get complete proteins by combining them. Four of the different ways that that happens is combining, for example, grains with seeds, or grains with dairy if you're vegetarian, or dairy with legumes, legumes with seeds, and vice versa. So out of those four categories, grains, seeds, dairy, and legumes, you're able to combine and get these complete proteins that you need. Next, that brings me to your protein requirements. As a woman who is aging, or even as a man, the tendency is that hormones will start dropping, and also so will our lean muscle mass. And not only that, a lot of people start slowing down as they're aging, and we want the opposite to happen. We want you to be able to maintain a high amount of exercise and be capable of doing things so that you're maintaining your lean muscle mass. Now, the recommended dietary allowance for protein that you'll see that most government bodies will suggest is that a person who's generally sedentary will be getting 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. And technically, that would be okay for somebody that's sedentary, not doing much of anything, sitting around 8 hours a day. But what we really want is a little bit more than that so that we're actually preserving lean muscle mass. Now, here's an interesting thought. We need proteins to be able to build things and break things down in our bodies. But have you ever thought about carbohydrates? I mean, we have huge recommendations on carbohydrates. And I understand if you're an athlete or if you are doing moderate to heavy exercise, definitely need carbohydrates. Your brain actually it wants carbohydrates. But at the same time, it's not making enough requirements, or excuse me, enough recommendations for the amount of protein you want. So why is that? Why is that carbohydrates are limitless, but protein is not? Well, here's the thing. You don't necessarily need carbohydrates, but they do have their place, as I had mentioned. But if you are an active woman and you are someone that is aging, someone who is trying out new exercise like strength training or endurance training, or even just walking, it is going to be super important to increase that amount of protein you're eating from 0.8 to something like 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight. Now, These recommendations are always going to be personalized to you. So, speaking to somebody who is knowledgeable in this area and speaking to your doctor before you try anything is really important to make sure that there's not any other underlying conditions going on, especially if you have renal problems. Now, one area that I haven't completely addressed is dairy. Now, a lot of people have lactose intolerance or whey protein problems with any kind of dairy, and it's really hard for them to digest. So, ideally, you wouldn't be getting your protein sources from dairy. But if you can tolerate dairy, usually what we want to do is go for the grass fed type of pasture raised organic. Um, Dairy when possible. And the same thing with fish, getting wild caught fish. But that's not possible for everybody. And if it isn't possible for you, then you just try to do your best. But the thing that you want to do is skip the types of proteins that are, say, breaded or deep fried or ultra processed. Those are the things that you kind of want to stay away from. But other things like sushi, so getting fish or getting canned this or canned that to consume is okay once in a while. But you probably don't want to be having it too often just because of the other things that are associated to those types of fish. But typical servings of beef, chicken, turkey, even lean pork, that kind of thing, and a few eggs a day, there's absolutely nothing wrong with. You might debate me on that, but I'm not here to debate you. I'm here to present what is the facts. So getting your protein consumption up basically is going to look like this. You are going to try to focus most of your meals around the protein on your plate, and you're going to build around that. So you're going to probably get like one palm size if you're a woman, and maybe two palm sizes depending on your goals between men and women. But specifically for women, we're going to start with that. Because if you're a beginner at consuming protein, what you want to try to do is think about, okay, what is the size here that I can fill in to get at least that amount of protein? And that could look like anywhere between 100 to 150 grams in weight of that food. And it could give you anywhere between, depending again, if it's an animal source. If it's eggs, it's only about 6 grams of protein per egg. But other things like meat and fish will be higher. So it could be over 15 to 20 grams of protein per serving. In things like beans and legumes, basically what you're aiming for is trying to get at least a half cup of those because they could go from anywhere between 7 to 10 grams of protein. I haven't mentioned things like tofu and tempeh, but getting at least 100 grams to 150 grams of those two are very, very good sources of plant-based proteins, not to mention types of nuts and seeds that you can get. Don't be alarmed, but nuts have lots of fat in them, so it means they have more calories. But they're not necessarily bad for you. You're just going to want to watch the consumption so you're not overeating them. And the last thing that I wanted to address is something that is more modern and something that has been on the market probably for a long time for bodybuilders, but for people who are new to protein, we automatically think, oh, well, I've got to start drinking protein shakes. Well, I'm here to tell you that it's not a bad idea to drink a protein shake, whether it's a plant-based protein, made from rice or from pea, or if it's soy or like hemp. But the other options too that you can think of are whey proteins if you can tolerate dairy. And there's absolutely no problem with that because you can get ones that have no flavor or ones that do have flavor because you want to spice it up a little bit. So when it comes to protein, like I said, you want to be building your meals around the protein consumption, and you want to make sure that you're getting the best quality that you possibly can. Guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Now, all you need to do is like and subscribe to it if you're watching this on YouTube. And if you're not, and if you're just listening, make sure that you also subscribe to my to my podcast channel and share it with your friends. I'll be coming on more often to give you bits and bobs and tips of where to start, the basic things of how to live the healthy life, and also how to make sure that you're on the right path for weight loss and also preventing chronic disease. Don't forget to scroll down to the description where you can go pick up 14 of my favorite recipes that are high in protein that you probably won't believe are actually really good for you.